So scrolling on X, and Eddie Murphy has a documentary coming out on Netflix on November 12th. I am so excited in so many ways. This reminds me, and someone made a good point. They said this is the comedy version of The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's Last Dance. If we go back to the pandemic, back in 2020, it's been 5 years, right? People are all at home, and you have this Last Dance documentary on Michael Jordan. And now, if you're a LeBron fan or you never saw Michael Jordan play, The Last Dance was tremendous because I think people really, especially young folks, Gen Xers, they really got into why Michael Jordan was so great. And I feel it's the same way with Eddie Murphy. There's a lot of kids who grew up watching just Murphy from The Nutty Professor or Dr. Dolittle or Shrek. Like, they don't know anything about the 80s Murphy or even the early 90s Murphy. Like, for me, I am reliving like my teen years. Like, I don't think people really understand like how great Eddie Murphy is. And first of all, I want to thank Lorne Michaels because Lorne Michaels was not part of SNL at the time when Eddie popped up. This is why Eddie Murphy is a star. Because if Lorne Michaels was there, let's say he stayed after the Not Ready for Primetime players. This was Gilda Radner and Aykroyd and Belushi and Bill Murray. Let's say Lorne Michaels stayed. He would have never casted Eddie Murphy. Or if he did cast Eddie Murphy, he would have never let Eddie take over that show. So God bless the fact that Lorne Michaels wasn't there at SNL during that time. And God bless the fact for those producers and those writers saying, like, you know what? Give the kid a shot. And Murphy was only 19 years old. There was never a point when you looked at Eddie Murphy and it's like, oh, well, he's kind of new. Like, no, he wasn't like that on SNL. And then during SNL, he does 48 Hours with Nick Nolte. Go watch that film. You never watched him. It's like, oh man, he really got to learn. Like, he's not really a good actor. No, he was great from day one. Then he goes there to Train Places with Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis. And then after that, you have Best Defense with Dudley Moore. But then after that, you got Beverly Hills Cop, a film meant for Sylvester Stallone, where it's just like his own film. And then he becomes Axel Foley with the whole Detroit Lions jacket and the Mumford sweatshirt. Y'all had to be there, man. And then he does a pivot. He does a pivot with Coming to America, where he basically takes the things that he did in SNL with all the characters, and now he's using prosthetics. And plus, he's playing a leading man. He's like playing a leading man. He's playing a straight man in a lot of ways. If you watch not the Nutty Professor, if you watch The Nutty Professor too, but when you watch Coming to America, he's really the straight man in the movie, and everybody else around him is funny. Oh my God. And then after that, you have Boomerang, like his most underrated film. I still love Boomerang. Is just the best. Oh my God. he was trying to get Halle Berry and Robbie Gibbons back then. And Eartha Kitt with the beet juice that keeps everything tight. It's so good. And then after that, he has The Nutty Professor. He has Dr. Dolittle. And even back in the 80s, he has his concert films, Raw and Delirious. I appreciate Raw so much more now because the stuff back then in Raw was kind of over my head. He used to really talk about adult stuff. Have Eddie, I would have. I didn't understand that stuff back then. I do now. Man, and then I think when you look at Murphy, he's not just on the Mount Rushmore of black comedians. Like, it's him, Richard Pryor, and then you can start debating who else you want to put on that Mount Rushmore. But there's a debate if he shouldn't be on the Mount Rushmore of just comedians overall, and this is including Richard Pryor. Like, if there's 4 people on Mount Rushmore, do you have Richard and Eddie, or you just have Eddie? Eddie is one of the best comedic actors ever, and keep in mind he was not a trained actor. I'm sure he had an acting coach along the way, but he wasn't a trained actor, not at all. And plus, he started stand-up when he was like 15, 16 years old in the comedy clubs. In a lot of ways, by the time he got to SNL, he was a seasoned vet when it came to comedy. But you don't know if that translated into film. He's been great. Should have won an Oscar for Dreamgirls, but they do that with Oscars, right? If you make a lot of money for Hollywood, they don't like giving you Oscars. Like Eddie Murphy, Tom Cruise, Jim Carrey, John Travolta, Steve Martin, no Oscars. no Oscars for all these guys. And they made all this money for Hollywood. It's ridiculous, man. So I am super excited about this Eddie Murphy documentary. Even if he doesn't cover some of the personal stuff that he dealt with, even if he doesn't cover that. I just think if you're a young person and you weren't around in the 80s and you know very little about the 90s, and you would say, well, what's the big fuss about Eddie Murphy? This is why. Those guys, there's a reason when you look at by Cedric Entertainer and Steve Harvey and Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, Cat Williams and Kevin Hart. There's a reason why these guys are still around today, because those guys who came through the Def Comedy Jam era, they saw Richard Pryor and Cosby and Dick Gregory and all these great black comedians, and Red Fox. They saw all these guys, but Eddie was different because Eddie was a young guy. He was a guy at 18, 19, 20 years old on SNL, 20-something years old making all these movies. If you're a young black comedian, or even like a comedian older than him back in the 80s, in the 90s, you want to be where Eddie Murphy is. Go. If you go through all these guys, especially a lot of black comedians, some too, some white comedians too, if they say who would you want to be like? Who influenced you? A lot of them would say Richard Pryor, maybe, but a lot of them would say Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was the mountain you needed to scale. And the problem with today is there's no Eddie Murphy. There's no Eddie Murphy. There's no Robin Williams. There's no Jim Carrey. There's no like great comedian, great comedic actor, a great comedian you can look at and say, man, I need to be like that guy. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this documentary. When you come, so you've got a Mount Rushmore of comedians. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore? If you want to do just black comedic Mount Rushmore, that's fine, but that's kind of slightly easy. But if you just have just a Mount Rushmore of comedians overall, who would be on it? And is Eddie Murphy, the talented, super talented Eddie Murphy? Would he be on part of your Mount Rushmore? He is on mine.